there's this issue about like in curriculum, like what should we be teaching? From my point of view, we should be teaching how to make a difference. Students want to do it. And in fact, it's not just educational institutions. I think even on the professional side, we get in the way of that. Like, in other words, it's not just about making a living, even though that is important. How do you make a difference in your own lives and the lives of other people? Second way we get into trouble, I think maybe, is when we make fun of amateurism. Professionals, well, amateurs. Well, I'm an organization theorist. I'm good at what I do. I have a lot of professional education, but I'm also an amateur. I love this stuff, and that stuff matters. This project is called the Gentilly Project. This is New Orleans. And it's funny, in order to make a difference, you have to know where you are to see the difference you're going to make. This is New Orleans abstraction shortly after Katrina. We always hear about the French Quarter and hardly the damage it had, and we always hear about the Lower Ninth Ward with its incredible damage. But most of New Orleans is not in the conversation, even still. And so what we get is, on both sides of the extremes, where some people think, oh, we can't do anything about New Orleans, and they talk about people who are, in their views, like, well, poor, there's nothing going on for them there, they should leave. And then we have other people who mean well, but it's the same thing. They're always talking about the same people who tend to be black, poor. But Lakeview is 95% white middle class, flooded out. New Orleans East, 95% black and middle class, homes, flooded out. So there's a greater breadth of need than we're all hearing. And so we're sort of changing ourselves. So what my project was using my background in organization theory and understanding how to mobilize people to address some of this problem. And what it mostly consisted of, it's a good example of this project of combining the ideal, like the theoretical, with the practical. And all this person is, this is Virginia Blanc, and she just basically she was coming at the same problem that I was coming at to perspective. I'm coming from a more academic perspective. Over lunch, if you want, I'll tell you the why. We actually know why and when open source works and when it doesn't. And over lunch, if you want to talk to me, just grab me. This is Gentilly. This is the area that I chose to work on. Gentilly is 8 square miles, 15,000 addresses. And part of this project was going house to house to measure what level of damage there was. Because from a practical standpoint, if you're going to fix things, you need to know how much and what kinds of damage is needed. And so I thought this would be easy in the beginning. Gentilly is it's representative of New Orleans, about 2/3 African American, different economic backgrounds. But it turns out there's over 20 identified neighborhoods in Gentilly. And in the process of doing this, I actually discovered another one that already existed. But there are different languages within each. Like, when I say languages, I don't mean let's say English, Spanish, but different backgrounds. So Pontchartrain Park is filled with mostly African Americans and seniors. Let's say Vista Park is actually more multiracial, more professional. Gentilly Heights, Boscoville is mostly like black, older Creole. It's like there are different racial and economic backgrounds going in there. And what I had to do is spend a lot of time almost meeting the languages where different people were. And what the students did with me is I've had 10 universities work with me over a couple years, sometimes a short period of time, sometimes large periods of times, everywhere from like Princeton, Dartmouth, where I was when it started, to East Texas Baptist University, UMass Boston, all kinds of students, all kinds of backgrounds and all that stuff. And I guess what I found in the end is, we actually did get reporting, like some results, like we got some news coverage. And it's funny, from a news perspective, everyone always wanted to know about the results. What was going on in Gentilly? And it would drive me crazy because what was interesting to me was how we did it. This took place outside of the curriculum. This was not part of the curriculum. I know in education we're talking about the curriculum, but universities at the undergrad level do a lot in the dorms and service learning. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on with that. And so, and further, I don't think I could have done this as with the responsibilities of being a tenure-track faculty member. When I was doing this, I deliberately had stepped out. I was not a tenure-track person, and that was how I was able to do it and work across departments and schools. And again, it wasn't just my university at the time, which was Dartmouth, but quite literally, anyone who wanted to participate could. And I don't want to knock universities, because universities were the ones who delivered the students to New Orleans in their service learning programs so that I can give them productive things to do. So it really does, for me, come down to this issue of like how to make a difference in the lives. And I think too often in these education discussions, there's this divide between liberal arts and professions. You know, it's like, okay, we need the liberal arts. We need to care. You know, we need to understand the human experience. But that also involves learning about the professional side, how to do things, technology and science. That should be part of liberal arts too when we think about it. But I don't think it necessarily is sometimes. But I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.